I say we take off and nuke the entire podcast from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Aliens coming up next. Welcome back to Nerd is the New Cool. My name is Justin, and join with me a special guest, Mr. John. You always were an asshole. Wadka, welcome.
Appreciate that intro. It's fitting.
Well, come on now. It's just a really good quote from the movie.
I know. I was just. I always were an asshole, Gorman. I didn't even think about that. Thank you. There you go.
See,
Very good. Okay.
this is what I do. I add fun little things from the film. Thanks for joining, man. You've been on this podcast multiple times, but I want to know, like, why did you pretty much request to say I want to be on Aliens?
Well, I mean, it's the 40th anniversary, obviously, 1986 to today, but yeah, you always do kind of seminal years and major milestones, and 40 is a big one, but also because Aliens is a seminal kind of cornerstone movie in my life in terms of if you're going to talk about nerding out on things, it was arguably the first movie, and I think the Alien series is probably my first love in terms of movies and a series that I have spent the most time obsessing over and digging into and kind of exploring. And so I'm intimately familiar with this movie and the series and have been for a very long time now.
Well, do you remember when you first saw this? Because I was really trying to like go back into like the recesses of my mind, and I do not recall when I watched this, but I can tell you for certain I watched this way younger than I probably should have.
And that's an interesting point because I think it is a great movie. It's an R movie, but I think it's a I think it's like the perfect introduction R movie for young boys. I think especially. I think girls can like it too.
Yeah.
But there's so much in it that is appealing to kids at that age. But I remember very distinctly watching it the first time because I, it was the network television premiere on CBS in 1989. So it was like May or June 1989, and I wasn't allowed to watch it, but I know my dad recorded it, and I was anticipating it being reported and knew it was on TV and knew I wanted to see it. I knew my brother got to watch it, and so I still remember too him describing several scenes in the movie, and it's like this is awesome, and this happened, and this happened, and so probably watched it like a day or two. It's one of those. It's like parents recorded it, make sure it's okay for a kid to watch, and then that's kind of what I fed on for. Because I was 89. It was about 2 or 3 years I watched that recording from TV until I picked up the copy of the special edition, a bootleg copy at a comic book show in like 91, and then got to watch that. But so
Well,
the
to
network
age us
television premiere, and
to age us
yeah,
a
I was
little
eight
bit.
years old.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're under 10. We're 8, 9 years old. Um, I watched this one, I'm pretty certain before I saw the original. I don't know if you're in the same boat with that.
No, yeah, I definitely didn't see Alien when I was 9 or 8. That was
No.
very different experiences.
And then going and seeing the original and then being able to experience in the theaters, I think it was in the theaters, Alien 3, right? We would have been old enough at that point, middle school, early high school, to see Alien 3.
That was 92, and I did see that in the theater. And that
Yeah.
was probably, aside from Terminator 2, that was probably the first R movie my parents took us to. And that, like a fun anecdote, I'm obviously I think the series is somewhat important to you because I remember in the fifth grade having a conversation because the trailer for Alien 3 had come out and it was attached to another movie. Like you'd rent a movie from Blockbuster and VHS it would have trailers for movies before the movies. And you're like, and I was asking you, was like, where did you see it? And you couldn't remember off the top of your head where you had seen the trailer, but you had seen it. And then it dawned on you, it was at the beginning of Hot Shots
Yeah.
from
And I
from
remember
1990.
I remember the trailer vividly too. It ends with, you got the xenomorph popping in on Ripley while she's, shaved head or whatever, and then you see the drool or whatever coming down. Um, I want to talk about Alien 3 later on, but how did you rewatch this?
I like the same way I've been rewatching it for the last 10 years, which is put it on right before I'm ready to go to bed and then watch 20 minutes and then fall asleep and wake up and turn it off. And then the next night start back to where I remember watching before I fell asleep. I've seen the movie so many times that
Yeah.
it's hard to get a new experience out of it. And I think the last time I really, I feel like it's one of those scenarios where I don't watch movies all the way through, and you often forget what it's like to. But I did get to go see it in the theater maybe 5 or 10 years ago on a date, and it was an awesome experience seeing it in the theater. And it kind of elevated it to like when you get to see it in the big screen with the effects and going into the hive. It's like, oh, this is so much bigger, and all of a sudden you hear the sound effects of the aliens hissing, and it's coming out of the speakers and the surround speakers. It's like, okay, like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm watching this for the first time again. And so
Yeah, I'm sure that was probably a much different experience than my rewatch, which was renting it on Prime Video because I forgot that I don't have this on DVD or Blu-ray, which is actually kind of sad. I definitely had this on
you don't have Disney
VHS.
Plus?
Is it on Disney Plus?
Disney owns Fox. They have you can watch the entire Alien series on Disney Plus.
Oh man, we looked at. I think I went. I think I looked at every single streamer but Disney Plus. Didn't even occur to me. Well, we spent actually it was free. We had credits, so it worked out pretty well. Jana watched this for the first time, by the way, and she's one of those. She wasn't going to watch Aliens before watching Aliens, so she watched them both. And I shared this with you kind of off air, but she was a fan of the original more so than the sequel. What say you?
I don't know. Do we want to get into this now? Because it's a hard discussion to have.
Well, I think
I
it's
know we
important to
have.
talk. Let's talk about like the relationship to the series, right? So you can't talk about Aliens without referencing Alien.
Uh, I which one do I like better? I like them both equally and for different reasons. I would say almost with time. I saw Alien 3 in the theater, and with the producer's cut, assembly cut, Alien 3 ranks up pretty close to Aliens in my opinion. Because as I've gotten older, like you find flaws in logic and things, which I find fun getting into at some point. But Alien is damn near perfect. Like it's like the movie Predator. It's 90 minutes of everything is perfect. It's like a perfect movie. Everything is just laid out in the perfect step-by-step basis, and the music and the soundtrack and the sets and the acting, and they're both roller coaster rides, but one of them I feel like has is tighter and more compact, and that's Alien, in the sense that it just goes, where Aliens has a little bit of downtime. Like you have set piece action scenes, but it's
Yeah.
kind of slow in the middle, which is, it's not to say it's boring, but it's like Alien just goes. Like once that shit hits the fan, it doesn't let go. Where to me, Aliens kind of dips a little bit before, accelerating through the last 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have different reasons why I actually like Alien better. I mean, like you said, like I think it's a better made movie. I also think I like it for different reasons as well. It's more like Jaws, right? Like it's the suspense that keeps building for these moments of when I mean, it's a shock thriller, right? As opposed to Aliens, it's much more of an action movie. I mean, Aliens is like the Predator version of, I mean, bringing up Predator, it's the Predator version of Alien. I mean, it is the worst part about the original Alien, and I mean this as some, I don't mean the worst part for me, because I am not a horror film person. I'm a giant pansy. I get scared very easily, and I blame Event Horizon, and I blame um,
Yeah.
Twin Peaks. Those are the two things that basically made me afraid of the dark. Okay, so Alien does such a great job of building that suspense, and you're like, oh yeah, don't split up. Oh, of course you're gonna split up, and now that person's gonna be dead, like the Friday the 13th model, right? Um, but Aliens is so much more fun to watch. I
Yeah,
love the
I
action
agree with that.
scene, even though there are some terrifying moments and there's definitely some shocking suspense and like gotcha, whatever. It's just a more fun hang. I just think like I enjoyed the experience of watching Aliens again. I mean, like I've watched it a million times too. Um, More so than Alien. And I, again, I'm a baby, so I was like, I'll watch Alien with you, Jana, but it's got to be during the day. But Aliens, I'm like, I don't care. We can watch this whenever you want. It's not
Right.
going to be the same type of horror experience.
And I often wonder what it'd be like to see those, because again, when you see them as kids and on TV edits, like I have seen it so many times, Aliens, that you know, and you read like the Siskel and Ebert reviews, like Gene Siskel or Roger Ebert was like, this movie was pulse pounding, and it wrote, and he describes it kind of like you're describing Alien, where it's
Yeah.
just like relentless go 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 that is constantly elevating tension. But to me, it's like there's so many cool things that happen. Like the guns are cool, and the soldiers are cool, and then the Queen Alien's cool. It's like I'm more amazed at the visual aspects of it than I am the emotional tension building parts. To me, it's not tension. It's like
Yep.
this looks awesome. Like this is so well done that it's not that it defeats its purpose. It's just I have a hard time viewing it as a neutral observer and not like a an 8 year old from the 80s during this awesome decade with seeing these guns for the first time and these this cool armor and the APC and the plane and just like you know the design of it.
I think that that's actually probably why Jana didn't like it as much. She said, she goes, I get why you and John probably like this movie more because it is like it's like the young boy, you know, it appeals to everything that you want when you're growing up, right? Yeah, you want the cool armor, you want the big fight scenes, you want the action, you want the development of the lore. Like, oh, this is actually what it looks like when you fight back against these aliens. The space element to it, right? Futuristic, whatever. Whereas Alien, she said, I cared when all these characters died. Every single character, they did such a good job of building the relationships to where when you lose someone, she's like, I was devastated after when every single person was getting killed. We don't feel that at
Yeah,
all in
and Alien
Alien.
Alien is character driven,
Yeah,
and part of that is the cast and the setup. And Aliens, like I think one of my complaints, which are few, is that like you've got 15 Marines, and this is something my brother pointed out too, is because we watch the end credit and you see all these names of the cast members like where's Bowski and Frost and Dietrich and you're like, who are these people? Because most of them don't get any screen time or get you've got Hicks and Hudson and Vasquez and Gorman and like the five that survived the initial attack that are present for the last hour of the movie. But you really don't, there's so many characters that you don't get introduced to and really don't get, a feel for who they are personally. They're just fodder to be killed. And then they're killed kind of in that first scene in the dark. Like
right.
it's not like you're seeing them get stabbed and slashed. It's a grenade goes off and three people die, and you're like, who just got killed? Like, I don't think I saw their face at any point. They don't focus on them in the hangar when they're doing the briefing. Like, there's the dinner table when they're eating breakfast. It's like you might see the side of their head, kind of in a shadow, but Aliens is very much focused on the principal cast and the extra cast. So you have no emotional attachment when they die. It's a
Well,
cool scene,
yeah, they're the red shirts, right? They're Star Trek red shirts where they're just in the background and
pretty much.
you know they're gonna die. If they don't ever say their name directly or they don't have any lines or they have one line that's like, you know, a throw off or like you're like, oh yeah, like those guys are all dead. Um, well, so besides of what makes it great, besides the action scenes, besides the futuristic, you know, feel to it, whatever it might be, like I think speaking of like what you were mentioning, the ensemble is, I think, a pretty huge like driving power of this film, right? Michael Biehn and just having all like the whole team itself, even though they don't like each other and there's obviously like conflict, I think that's what makes this movie like so much more fun.
And they end up working together. And then you've got different personalities. You've got the badass Vasquez, and you've got
Yeah.
Hudson, who's like, the jokester, and then he starts freaking out, and he's like, he's the guy the audience relates to because it's how would you be reacting in the situation? Will you be you'd be freaking out too? And then he has his blaze of glory where he's just fuck you and fuck, and he's just he becomes a soldier again at the end after kind of being reduced in status, and it everybody plays a role and plays it very well, and I appreciate that aspect.
She was very excited for him to die, by the way, Jana. She said, "Oh, I fucking hate Bill Paxton in this movie,"
Really?
which I thought was
I've read
funny.
that before too, that he was like the one of the least popular characters, but he's got all the best quotes, like, or many of the best quotes.
I loved him. I thought he was cracking me up, even when he's like starting to lose his shit. Like it was really funny, but she was not impressed apparently. And so I got to watch a lot of these things that like in real time for a person that had she'd never seen either of these movies before.
And I think it's also Bill Paxton, the Hudson character. You don't quite realize it, but when you listen to his dialogue and he's ruminating on this, he keeps saying he's like 4 more weeks and out. And then you realize like the dude has been in it for so long. Like the reason he's acting the way it is because this is basically his last mission. And he had 4 more weeks being in the Corps and he was
Yeah.
done. And then all of a sudden he gets sent on what should have been a routine, you know, easy going thing, and then all of a sudden, shit, like 17 days till evacuation, and he's like, I'd be upset too if it was the I'm about to retire and now I'm for certain dead.
Yeah, and they they get to that near the end of the movie, or like I'd say two-thirds the way through. He finally says that I got 4 weeks left. This thing is ridiculous, but they don't get into it early enough in the movie, I think, for you to really like be
Yeah,
like, what's this dude's deal?
yeah.
Sigourney Weaver. We got to talk about Sigourney Weaver for a second before we move on. So I think that I personally, first of all, she's a gigantic badass, and I don't. This is gonna sound weird. I don't necessarily find Sigourney Weaver. Um, she's not my type, but in this movie, I think she is fucking sexy as hell. This one and in Alien as well. What do you think?
uh I have a little there's a fun little anecdote regarding her role in Alien. She was too tall for me. And there's something about the perm style hair, like, you know, really curly hair really doesn't do it for me. I'll admit that I had a crush at 9 on like Carrie Henn, like
Oh,
the
really?
cute blonde girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was one of my kind of first cinematic crushes. But I did like Sigourney Weaver's character. I mean, she is the, kind of archetype for the badass hero. And she's not really that hero in Alien. She's just as scared as everybody else and
Yeah.
survives, fortunately. But in Aliens, she's like steps it up to another level as like she assumes a much different. And it's what's cool is she's a badass, but it's also a very maternalistic role. And she's a mother as well as what becomes a soldier at the same time. And so I think it's a very interesting, and I think she's deserving of the Academy Award nomination for that role as well.
Well, yeah, and I think I want to clarify. Like, I think that's what makes her so attractive is that she is such a fucking badass, and she becomes a leader in this one. She becomes like the go-getter. She gets their asses out of trouble multiple times, and then yeah, she goes and saves Newt and fucking kills the queen twice, basically, along with the entire hive. Obviously, I mean, it's pretty incredible. Can you think of another, like you said, like archetypal, like badass that wasn't like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone. There wasn't a
Well,
dude.
Linda fucking Hamilton,
Okay, right.
Sarah Connor.
And they come out basically side by side. But Linda Hamilton she's very similar to Ripley in Alien, right? She's scared.
In the first Terminator, yeah.
Yeah.
But in Terminator 2, she follows the same trope of becoming, she's a protective mother, but she's doing the pull-ups and she's got the military training and she has prepared herself. And I feel like she's a little more realistic of a character than Sigourney in Aliens, and that this woman obviously, experienced a very traumatic event and is waiting for the end of the world and has prepared for it. Versus, I think it's cool that Sigourney takes the role that she does, but it's also like, you know, there's no necessarily backstory to explain why she is so awesome and badass. Where Linda Hamilton has like you know, I think her trauma is greater, and
Yeah.
the understanding of like the future is fucked. Like we're all gonna die in a nuclear war unless I prepare my son. Versus, Sigourney Weaver goes back and it's like I don't know if something is going on there or not, and it's a question, and she has to fall into the role, whereas Linda Hamilton is prepared for the role.
But I can't think of another actress like someone who played a this powerful of a woman in this type of like action type setting before Sigourney Weaver. And yeah, you're right. Linda
Oh
Hamilton.
no, she totally set the bar, and that was, like the trope of the last girl standing has been kind of a horror movie staple for a while, but the get away from her, you bitch,
Yeah,
taking matters into her own hands and kind of stepping up beyond the male roles was definitely unique to
yeah.
Aliens.
So I think before we get into the categories, we do need to like, I guess, address the whole James Cameron taking over for Ridley Scott, right? And that's kind of a big aspect of this, the making of this movie.
Yeah, no, that was it. You got two of the, you know, kind of heavyweights, which I think is great about the Alien series, is that they take really good directors and very unique directors with their own, as you'd call them, you know, what I can forget about the word, but they have style and they have a certain way of doing things, and each movie really very much reflects the personality of the director. And so you get four really, especially the four, up through Resurrection, you get four very distinct Alien movies that can be weighed on their own merits versus kind of compared to one another. And I think that falls into when you talk about Alien 3, is everybody compares Alien 3 to Aliens because Aliens was such a badass movie, and then you get something that deviated so substantially from like this course that had been set, that people often forget too that Aliens deviated very heavily from Alien, but it was so successful that people didn't complain that, well, this was a very fast, very, very intense horror movie, and now we're getting an action movie. And, I have other gripes in regarding timeline and consistency and stuff like that they, like James Cameron totally glosses over the whole alien spacecraft. Like what but that was a huge part of the first one. You never really see that again. They don't go back to it. And my question is like, how did the company not find that spacecraft? Like, why are we relying on, you know, a queen when you have a ship of 1,000 eggs? That's literally like a kilometer or two from. That to me is like one of the bigger plot holes that I have an issue with. But you know, go ahead. So I think it's great. I think James Cameron did it really cemented his career as an action director, and it shows off his prowess as the special effects and the world design and world building, especially when you see an Avatar nowadays. Like the guy is a very, very technical director, and when you read about him, the one thing you read the most is that he at any given time could step into any one person's role in the production side of things and do that role better than the person tasked with doing that role. So I know when you read about it, he does storyboards. I don't know if you've ever looked up his storyboards. Like the dude's an amazing artist,
Yeah.
and he started out as a special effects director for like Battle Beyond the Stars and a Roger Corman science fiction kind of a Kurosawa Seven Samurai knockoff. And you see that the best part of that movie is the special effects. And you see the Terminator, and it has great special effects and great directing. And so James Cameron was kind of perfect for that because he spared no expense in making a very well made, very well done visual world.
Interestingly enough, Ridley Scott apparently wasn't even asked to come back and do the sequel. And he learned about it,
No,
I mean, I'm sure as it was getting written, and he said, quote at the time, hurt my feelings really because I thought we did quite a good job on the first one. But then later on, he basically says like Cameron did a good job, and he was really pretty impressed with what he accomplished. And then it is kind of cool that Ridley Scott was able to come back and do I guess, the prequels, right, with Prometheus and whatnot.
I I enjoy those movies. Just I would prefer they actually weren't alien part of the alien universe. Like I can't get too much into it, but like it's not how I read the comics, and it's not really how I envisioned. I didn't envision the space jockey being, really tall humanoids wearing
Yeah,
spacesuits.
that was
Like
kind of weird.
I appreciate what he was trying to do, but I did think it was interesting that he kind of sees the IP as his own, and kind of threw everything else and said, this is the direction we're taking. Like I made the original one, and I'm now going to pick up the reins and continue everything else. And there's really nothing you can do about it because they had a scenario. It was like Damien Lindelof, the guy who did District 9. He had
Mhm.
written a treatment, like they had been looking for other people to make Alien 5 and progress this. And Scott was like, no, I'm reclaiming, the movie that made me famous, and I'm going to take the story in the direction I want it to go, whether people like that direction or not.
I agree with you. I think they're interesting movies and I like them. I'm not going to put them like in the pantheon of movies I love, but I think for what it was very entertaining. And obviously, there's some fun, shocking moments there, and a little bit of like lore that's they. It's I think that it needed to go back to kind of what those movies were, because at a certain point, the Alien like sequels had turned into Alien versus Predator, and it got kind of like jumped the shark a little
Yeah, those were those were god awful. Well, the
bit.
first one, I rewatched that a little while ago, and it has its moments, but one is PG-13,
Right.
which just does not do it for me. And then Alien Res the Requiem, I think I saw it in the theater and haven't really watched it since. It's like you had one or two, the wolf, the kind of the guy who cleans up the messes, Predator, and a few interesting things, but it just was not. They were not good movies.
Yeah, you watch it, you're like, that's fine. I'll never think about that movie or watch that movie again. That's
Which is unfortunate because I've seen Aliens 1,000 times, and I've seen
yeah.
Alien 1,000 times, and Alien 3, and I even Alien Resurrection, which a lot of people don't like that, but it's like it's still a very unique Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who's a French director, and you should look up and see some of his stuff because he is a super visual director, and he has this he did a movie called City of Lost Children with Ron Perlman's in it, and some of the cast from Alien Resurrection. This guy uses the cast, and so you see Alien Resurrection, and you watch his older stuff, and you're like, oh, I really understand now. This makes more sense in the context of the other movies. He also did Amelie and Delicatessen, and Amelie was, I think, his biggest one. Yeah, Audrey Tautou. It was very, very cute early 2000s movie, but he has a very distinct style and he uses the same cast. And so when you watch Resurrection in the context of a French director doing his thing and a European interpretation, like it's like, okay, I can cut this movie some slack because it's not trying to be an American movie. It's not trying to be a production for American audiences. It's a wholly unique entity and property that was
Yeah.
designed by a very visionary director.
I think it was a big swing and a little bit of a miss, but I do like movie aspects of that movie for sure. Let's get into the categories. We're gonna start out with the summary, which I see you have rewritten. So I'm gonna let you reread. I'm gonna let you read this one.
I wanted you to read it, not realizing that I had rewritten
Oh
it,
no,
like
no,
the
I catch
Sandlot
everything.
one. Ellen Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo, has signed back on for adventure as she joins a ragtag platoon of space marines back to the nightmarish planet Acheron, where they are soon up to their elbows in bug hunts, acid blood, and corporate villainy. I hope that wasn't
Uh,
too
that was,
tasteless, but
that was good. No, that was good. It debuted July 18th, 1986, as a runtime of 2 hours and 17 minutes. That was the theatrical release. Special edition 234. I always ask the question upon the rewatch, do you think it feels like a 2 hour and 17 or 34 minute, whatever version you watched film?
yes and no. Like I said, the first third and the last third go really quick.
Yeah.
The world building and the conclusion, but it does kind of after the first attack when they all go into the plant and get and the ship crash and everything, it kind of slows down and drags a little bit. And
Yep.
I think the special edition kind of helps because it throws in the motion sensor guns, and those are some cool. It's like a little sporadic burst of action in between, kind of you know exposition and her talking to Burke and her going in and talking to Newt, and it's like I get why these scenes are in here, but it just kind of puts the foot on the brake a little bit, and so it goes pretty quick. It doesn't really feel like that long of a movie, but it does drag a little bit in the middle for me.
I agree. It didn't feel like it was over 2 hours long, but yeah, there were a couple points where I'm like, how much time is left in this movie? But then as soon as you get to like after they barricaded themselves in, basically now the aliens are coming in. That last 30 minutes, or whatever, was like over that
Yeah.
like quick. Even to the point where I'm like, she still got to go rescue Newt. How the hell are they going to do this in the time that's left in this movie? I mean, it really flies at the end there. Budget of 18.5 million. It grossed worldwide, estimated 157 million. That's a pretty great return on investment. And it finished third that year behind Crocodile Dundee and Top Gun. Kind of rarefied air there.
And 18.5 adjusted for inflation, that's like a maybe 40 to 50 million. Like that is ridiculously cheap for everything you get in that movie. Like the all those visuals were the model work and the blue screen and it's just really amazing that they could make a movie that good looking from start to finish for 18.5 million at the time. Like it's
Yeah,
just it blows my mind.
yeah, and honestly, like most of it kind of the special effects holds up. I mean, there were some moments, of course, where you're like,
Oh,
oh, this was made in the 80s, whatever. But and I thought the Queen was the part that I kind of I don't want to say chuckled at a little bit, but it was very awkward and gangly, and maybe that's what the point of that was supposed to be. But you could tell it was like a model they were moving around. Um, but again, like having been made 40 years ago, it's pretty impressive still.
and with no computers, it's all practical. And
Yeah.
nowadays, a movie like that would be all done in computers. It would cost 3 or 4 times as much, and it wouldn't look as good.
Yeah.
And I think that's the testament of James Cameron personally, because you have a special effects driven director and then you also have Stan Winston, and there's a lot of people that went into the making of that were really, really talented individuals. So
Yeah. So some awards. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including actress, score, art direction, editing, sound. It also won for sound, special effects editing, and visual effects. And Sigourney Weaver's Best Actress Academy Award nomination for this movie was the first ever for a Best Actress in a role for a sci-fi action movie. Although other people had been nominated for science fiction before, including Melinda Dillon for Best Supporting Actress for Close Encounters of the Third Kind in 1977. Pretty impressive.
and she's great. Yeah,
Really,
yeah.
really
No,
good.
nobody really takes science fiction seriously, and this was to get a nomination for that and to get a lot
Yep.
of money for that was a big boon to the genre.
When you know they're going to get all those nominations and awards for like sound and now FX and things like that, but for acting awards, it's pretty impressive. BS rankings, Rotten Tomatoes, 93% with an audience score of 94%, and IMDb gives it an 8.4. Those IMDb people, those curmudgeoned fucking gamer fucks, always bring the average down, but it was nice to see the Rotten Tomato score was so high.
And
This,
it's a comparable with us both. Like that's
yeah, totally. The Spielberg Award for directing, as we mentioned, James Cameron was the director for this. Do you want to talk a little bit about James Cameron here?
in the context of the movie. I thought it was interesting because it was a movie. It was just rife with production errors. And Alien 3 was too, and you have a very different product from Alien 3. But Aliens was, you know, James Cameron. Basically, it was filmed in the UK, and there was Pinewood Studios, and they had a unionized English crew. And his biggest gripe was like every day at the same time they had to take a tea break, and this was in their contract. And so they'd be setting up and shooting, and then it'd be like, oh, time for tea, and they'd have to stop for an hour. And this guy is like a balls to the wall, super professional director, and he just frustrated the shit out of him that he had to stop production and what they were doing so that the crew could, sit down and have their beverages. And then his cinematographer kept making suggestions against his will. And I think the biggest one was they were shooting the hive scene, and the cinematographer was like, I want to light this in bright lights. And James Cameron's like, no, this needs to be in dark lights. And the guy set up the entire rig in bright photography. And Cameron fired him on the spot, and they had to tear down and redo all the lights. And then the assistant director too was like, I'm going to do it my way. And Jim Cameron's like, screw you, James Cameron. And so they fired that guy and replaced him. And Cameron was dating Gale Ann Hurd, who was, I think they weren't quite married. Maybe they did get married, but the crew did not respect her because they thought that she was just there because of her relationship to Cameron. And so, but I found this quote online, which I think is a kind of summarizes everything. And so when production finished and Cameron was addressing the crew, He said to him, "This has been a long and difficult shoot, fraught with many problems, but the one thing that kept me going through it all was a certain knowledge that one day I would drive out of the gate of Pinewood and never come back, and that you sorry bastards would still be here." Which,
That's pretty awesome. That's a good double middle finger on the way out the door.
yeah, screw you guys, I'm going home. But and I think you've probably heard this. Have you heard about Cameron's reputation
Yeah, yeah, sure.
as a director? That he's like, people complain about Stanley Kubrick, but James Cameron also has that reputation for being like notoriously autocratic, like it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
And I do remember too reading about like The Abyss, they because that was all underwater, and it was like Ed Harris like almost drowned in one scene, and then he got off set and tried to fight Cameron because of it, and like apparently the guy hasn't spoken to him like in years, and refuses to talk about the movie. So he definitely has a reputation for being a particular way, but he's also, as one of the most knowledgeable and successful directors of all time, so maybe he's earned it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times people who reach that pinnacle of success are often challenging to work with, but something works, obviously. He also wrote this. The Tarantino Award for writing goes to James Cameron. Um, Also co-written by two other people. So it was co-written by with David Geller, who passed away in 2020. Also wrote things like Fun with Dick and Jane, Money Pit, Alien 3, and also was co-written with by Walter Hill, who wrote The Warriors, 48 Hours, another 48 Hours, as well as Alien 3. Hill, Giller, and Gordon Carroll, who also passed away in 2005, formed Brandywine Productions in 1969, which has produced every Alien movie to date, which is pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, and
Sure.
Walter Hill directed The Warriors in 48 Hours too. He wasn't
Oh,
just a
he
writer,
was.
but he was also a director.
Yeah. I should mention that while James Cameron was writing this, he actually sold Fox the ideas, or the Fox execs the idea for this based on scripts for Terminator Rambo 2. And it kind of makes sense that this would be kind of like a, I don't know, I would hate to say like a version of a Rambo versus Aliens or versus Terminator, but it kind of is, right?
Yeah, and that I think too they were seeing what he was doing with the Terminator. Or like, okay, this guy obviously knows what's going on, and they put the production on hold to give him time to finish Terminator,
Hmm.
so then he could come in, write Aliens, and direct it. So they obviously had trust in the man before things even got rolling, and before Terminator was even a success. But he knew what he was doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, if this came out in 86 and Terminator was 84, right? So
Yep.
it'd have been, yeah. Tom Hanks, best leading role. We don't often just give this to one person, but there's one leading role in this movie, and it's Sigourney Weaver plays Ripley. Of You know what, we're going to talk about her peak later on, so we'll get to other things she's been in. But this was her first $1 million payday, and basically made her like giant lead actress for the '80s and into the '90s.
Yeah. Yeah, she had been a couple other things, but she came out of the gate firing, and it definitely built. I don't want to say her. We'll get to the peak stuff later, but it cemented her status very, very quickly. But I thought it was fascinating though, when reading about it, and that to me the fact that, because I've heard her talk before, and she gave an interview about this for one of the anniversaries a couple years ago. But Sigourney Weaver is very politically minded, and she is a very large anti-gun proponent.
Hmm.
And you kind of have to scratch your head at an anti-gun proponent being in a movie like Aliens, which is full of guns. But as she went on to say, she's like, I read the script, I read the dialogue part, but I didn't read any of the actual notes for what was going on in the scenes. And then I showed up to shoot, and Cameron's like, hey, this is the weapon you're going to be holding. And she's like, wait a minute, I don't appear with guns on screens. And Cameron's like, it's kind of important that you do this. It's the crux of the character. So she had to be coaxed basically into using weapons for the movie. And conversely, she was a producer on Alien 3. And one of the reasons that there are no firearms in Alien 3 is that she refused to be in the movie if they had weapons. And so if you were looking for Aliens 2, a repeat of the action movie, one of the reasons that you didn't get it was because Sigourney Weaver was such a commanding presence and was a producer that he's like, I don't want any weapons in it. It needs to be, gun free. And so they basically eliminated them more or less entirely.
That's pretty awesome. And I think I mean, the Fincher's movie is again, I love Alien 3. All right, now we can make some argue a little bit. Other four Jacksons. So let me mention all of the characters I nominated here, and then we can kind of give some nerd facts about them. So Carrie Henn plays Newt, and this is pretty much the only thing she's really in. Michael Biehn plays Corporal Hicks. Probably know him from Tombstone, Terminator, and The Abyss. We've already kind of mentioned a few of those. Paul Reiser plays Burke. He was a stand-up comedian. Then he was in Beverly Hills Cop and Aliens, and then eventually, like Mad About You is his major thing. Recently, he's been in Stranger Things and The Boys. And then Lance Henriksen plays Bishop. He's been in movies like The Right Stuff, Terminator, Near Dark, Quick and the Dead. He was also nominated for a Golden Globe for a TV show called Millennium in the late 90s. And he's got 269 acting credits. So let's
He's
talk
been
about
around.
been around for a while, yeah. You want to talk
Yeah, I
about
thought it was fun.
good.
About what?
Any other characters? Talk about Carrie.
Well, that's all she did. There's like nothing to talk about. But she did join like the ranks of, every so often you'll get a child actor that does one movie and then basically quits. And another example that if you remember, is the kid who played Charlie in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the blonde hair, the original one with Gene Wilder, did one movie and then quit. And then the kid who played Danny in or what? Yeah, is it Danny? Yeah,
Danny in The Shining, yeah.
in The Shining, Danny Lloyd, like he did one movie and quit. But I did see that. I don't know if you saw Doctor Sleep, which you should see it. It's freaking great. It was
Yeah.
one of my favorite movies. But he had a cameo during the baseball scene when they're at the Little League game. He apparently
Oh, really?
reappeared
Yeah.
as one of the extras in the stands. But no,
That's good.
they did one movie and then jumped ship. But
So
what
Michael
a
B,
movie to do for all three of them.
I was going to say, right, those are some three pretty amazing classics. Michael Biehn now, he wasn't actually the first choice to play Hicks. James Remar was supposed to be, he was actually originally cast, but he was arrested on drug charges in the UK and was deported a few weeks into filming. And I think most people listening to this will probably know him as um, he's in Dexter. He's Dexter's dad.
And he's in Raiden in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. You can't forget
I
that.
guess let's not forget that, or
That
maybe we
movie
should.
is so horrible. We're not going to talk about it. But he replaced Christopher Lambert, and I saw him in that. I was
Yeah,
like, man, you Christopher Lambert was the best part about the original one, and
he
once
was. He
they
was
he
great.
just did.
Now I like
But
James
he
Remar.
was arrested. He's a good actor. I mean, he's a good. He just had major. He was buying speedballs, like heroin cocaine mixtures, and he was had a major drug problem at the time. But in the similar to the Back to the Future where they replaced Eric Stoltz, they had a few scenes where Eric Stoltz, the back of his head appears. Uh, Cameron had shot basically the part where all the Marines go into the hive, and James Remar appears in that. The back of his head does, but then he got fired and they disassembled the set in the process. And so Cameron was forced to use the footage because they couldn't reshoot it with Bean instead.
Wow.
So he still appears in the movie. You just can't tell it's him.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Bishop. So I think this is crazy. He was actually originally considered by James Cameron to play the original Terminator before Schwarzenegger basically persuaded Cameron to do that. Otherwise, he considered quitting acting altogether if he didn't get a part in Aliens, and eventually he was cast as Charles Wayland in Aliens versus Predator, and as well as Bishop's creator Michael Wayland in Alien 3.
Yeah. So he's been an integral part of the series. And I
Yeah.
think it's cool that they brought him back.
What a
Now
different
he's
perspective if if he's fucking Terminator, the T-100
I well T-800.
or T-800. Yeah, yeah.
That was the original idea, was that the Terminator was supposed to be an infiltrator robot. Like he was supposed to look like a regular guy versus a 6'2" giant bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And I think it was Schwarzenegger was cast or was looking to be cast as Kyle Reese instead of Michael Biehn, and he was basically was working with Cameron, like, basically blocking out how he thought the Terminator should act as this, the voice and the robotic rhythm. And Cameron's like, you kind of got it nailed down. Plus your the physical presence. I think O.J. Simpson was another candidate to play the Terminator,
Yeah.
but they went with Schwarzenegger because of his size and because of his accent and because he really pitched him on the whole, you know, working and moving like a robot versus, this regular Joe who's just kind of running around as a everyman, as Henriksen would have.
So who is your favorite of these four actors?
Oh,
Secondary
Michael
character.
Biehn.
Yeah, okay.
As a kid,
Yeah.
he's like such a cool actor, and it's a pity about his career. I don't know if you can blame Alien 3 not having him in it for derailing things, but he was in The Abyss and he was awesome in Tombstone, and he's just such a good presence and was in so many great, just 4 or 5 awesome 80s, early 90s movies. And he just kind of, it just didn't go anywhere. And he's one of my favorite actors as a kid that really never made it into adulthood.
Yeah. No, he wins. Backup singers. So Bill Paxton plays Private Hudson. Again, RIP in 2017. Also was in Terminator, Weird Science, Twister, True Lies. He actually worked
I,
as a. Go ahead.
I would say don't forget Near Dark, and I'll bring that up in a second because Jeanette Goldstein is in it too. But
I don't know what Near Dark
have
is.
you seen? You should see it, and we'll get into it after. I'll just get into it now. Near Dark. I want to say it was produced by Galen Hurd, but it was Catherine Bigelow. The Near Dark 30. She did. What did she do? Strange Days and a bunch of stuff. She's like one of the first women to win an Academy Award, but she was married to James Cameron. But her first movie was Near Dark, and it's a vampire movie from 1987 where Bill Paxton, Lance Henriksen, and Jeanette Goldstein, plus one other kid, are like a vampire family driving around the Southwest. And it's awesomely violent. Like it's super. I haven't seen it in a long time, but definitely got a cult movie status, and it's kind of like half this cast of Aliens plus the producer, and it's got a Tangerine Dream score, and it's very well known for, like, Bill Paxton is like a fucking savage. He's got
Yeah.
cowboy boots with like razors attached to him, and he's like slitting people's throats and drinking their blood, and
Hmm.
it's a pretty crazy movie that not a lot of people know about.
Yeah, she did Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 32.
Yeah,
Um,
those two.
so he worked as a carpenter on the set of Battle Beyond the Stars, and apparently he was so endearing to producer Gail Ann Hurd that he was invited to audition for Aliens. And a lot of people claim that Paxton and Hendrickson are the only two characters to be killed by a Predator, Alien, and Terminator on screen. But you think otherwise? Is that true?
I do, and I don't know if you've ever seen this meme on the internet, but it goes around that Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen were killed by, because those are obviously like the three most famous of the late 20th century movie monsters, and there's been tons of movies about them, like they're franchise staples. And so Bill Paxton is in Predator 2 and dies in Predator 2. He's in Aliens and assumably dies in Aliens, but he's in the Terminator at the very beginning. He's one of the three punks that accosts Arnold when he first appears. And people like to claim that Arnold kills him, but it's like he pushes him into a fence and he falls down on the ground. And there's no reason to assume that he actually dies. And so I took issue with that, because it's like maybe he was knocked unconscious. Perhaps he lied there and maybe the Terminator killed him, but you definitely don't see it. And
Yeah.
I just is one of those things where it's like it's fun to think about, but it's also like I'm kind of a stickler for
Movie continuity.
you know continuity and stuff like that. And then Henriksen obviously is in the Terminator. He's one of the police officers. He
Mhm.
dies. He's gets killed by a predator in Alien versus Predator. And then he's Bishop in Aliens, and the Queen Alien skewers him and rips him in half, but it doesn't kill him. Like, how do he gets terminated and turned off in
Yeah,
Alien
I mean,
Three.
can you really kill them, right? That's a different conversation, I think.
So I
Okay,
hate to,
all right.
debunk the internet memes and deflate people's excitement at these guys getting killed by the big three, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's an accurate. I
Well,
don't think it's accurate.
Mark Ralston also plays Private Drake, who was Boggs from Shawshank, and he's in The Departed as well. Janet Goldstein plays Vasquez, who actually won a Saturn Award for this movie. She was also in Lethal Weapon 2, Near Dark, as you already mentioned, Terminator 2, and Titanic. So, is it Bill Paxton? I think that's probably the answer for this.
It's either Bill Paxton or, I mean, he's obviously a lot of fun, but Jeanette Goldstein as Vasquez is pretty, you know, Sigourney Weaver is a badass, but Vasquez is, I feel like an even bigger badass. And she got that great line where she's doing the pull-ups and Hudson's like, "Have you ever been mistaken for a man?" And she burns him with "Have you?" And her run around with the smart guns, and she's a one tough hombre in that movie. And so I might lean more towards Vasquez. Hudson's like comedic relief,
I
and it's
think we give it to
fun.
her. I think we give it to her because Hudson is kind of annoying. I agree. I agree with Jana.
He's whining a lot, and he has this moment at the end where he redeems himself. But it's just game over, man, game over. It's a great quote, but it's also it's kind of been played out a little bit.
Yeah, he's a lot. The John Williams category for music. So James Horner was a composer for this film, and he was really popular in the 80s, 90s. He actually worked with James Cameron on Battle Beyond the Stars. He also composed the scores later on for Titanic and Avatar. Fun fact, Alien was the second time Horner would follow in the footsteps of Jerry Goldsmith with a sequel. Goldsmith composed the score for Star Trek The Motion Picture, and Horner followed by doing Wrath of Khan, which was kind of a big deal breakout. Um, Goldsmith also did the score for the original Alien. He only had
Yeah,
3 weeks.
and they're
He only
both.
had three. He only had 3 weeks to make this.
He thought he had eight, and then he showed up, and Cameron hadn't finished shooting, and so he didn't have the footage to work with, and he ended up having 3 weeks to compose the score, which ended up being really successful. Got an Academy Award nomination, and there's a couple tracks in there that are, I think, very memorable. The APC, or yeah, the when basically the firefight when she's driving through the halls in the car, and then the escaping the planet are both very well known scores. But to bring back up the 2001: A Space Odyssey, I mentioned the Khachaturian's Guyane Ballet Suite, which is the music that Kubrick uses when the spaceship is flying through, like he transitions to the ship in space as they're on the way to Jupiter, and it's like I described it as the sad ship in space music. Well,
Yeah.
Horner is kind of notorious for kind of directing, lifting and quoting composers like verbatim, and so he uses a section of that song that is he didn't like try to incorporate it into his own. It's just like, okay, I'm just going to lift this and put it into my score, and he reused it in Patriot games as well.
Hmm.
But I do remember that because he didn't have a lot of time to do it, and Cameron didn't like a lot of the score, so Cameron cut in parts of the original Alien score into the soundtrack as well. And so you kind of get a little bit of a mix of both. And I almost feel like I need to go back and rewatch and listen for that because I've never really taken the time to. I remember reading it, but I don't feel like it's super distinctive because the Alien score is fairly distinctive as well.
Yeah.
But it's neither here nor there. I'm a music score buff, so
Yeah. No, it's fascinating.
I kind of focus on these things.
I respect it. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
All right. So scenes to nerd out on. Let's get into the little deep dive categories. So I have 15 scenes, and honestly, there are probably a lot of.
Wow.
Is that not a lot, or is that more than you expected?
I I'm that's a lot. I mean
Okay.
that's
Well,
like
listen, I'm gonna.
half the
So,
movie. No,
some of these
go
some of these
ahead.
are not winners, but I just wanted to like almost like I just want to tell the story of the movie. So, and like the first scene I have is finding Ripley. So it's I mean that entire like the entire part of like um finding her, getting interrogated. What do we have to do now? Like I think like that's all kind of grouped together. The next scene I have is meeting the crew in the new ship, and we get to see Bishop's knife trick. Then we have loading up before they reach the planet. I have arriving on the planet and searching the place. That scene's pretty great. And then they find Newt. I just wrote down Newt. The whole thing with Newt won't talk, get her to talk, doll, whatever. Then they find the beacons, and then now they're going to search for the beacons. And I wrote down the next scene is aliens appear and the squad gets wiped out. Basically the first time that happens. Then I wrote down kind of the tail end of that scene, which is Ripley to the rescue, because she's the only one who does anything. I have the plane crash. I have the plan to escape. So now you know, they're getting together. Like, here's how we're gonna, fix this and get out of here. Hudson, calm the fuck down. Face huggers are on the loose. That's the next scene I had. Then I had the in the ceiling, where the aliens are in the ceiling now, and that's why they're basically coming to, you know, break in. Basically, I wrote air vents is the next scene, so climbing through the air vents, which leads to Vasquez dying, obviously. Um, and then I just
And
honestly,
Gorman.
what's that?
I said, and Gorman.
And Gorman's right.
You always were
Gorman's
an
fine.
asshole, Gorman,
He's
right?
totally fine. He's like I don't know. He's a throwaway. Uh, Um, then I just wrote down Ripley net rescues Newt, and then Ripley battles the Queen. Those are kind of the two big scenes to wrap it up. I know there's smaller scenes in between there, so if you want to
No,
add
no,
any
yeah, it's,
on,
you documented the movie.
okay, all right.
Um,
So I'm gonna give you my top three, and then I'm curious what you think, and we can maybe narrow it down to our favorite. I think that the first time the aliens appear and the squad gets wiped out is fine. Like it's almost like it's this whole buildup, this tension, right? You're like, fuck, something's got to happen eventually. What is going on? And then that first time the aliens appear is pretty awesome. And again, like if you've
it,
only
it,
seen Alien and now all of a sudden there's more than one, you're like, oh fuck. This is gonna be bad, you know?
yeah, and it's also I think it's satisfying because it's kind of like the vindication for Ripley. And, they get there and they find the face huggers and you see that they're fighting, but there's really no evidence of the aliens themselves. And then they just going into the hive, as I mentioned earlier, when they pan up and there's the everything on the ceiling and the walls, and then they go through it, all the dead bodies. Like
Yeah.
if you take the time to like pause it and look at it, like there's a lot of grotesque stuff in there and a lot of really cool designed, like it's one of those scenarios where like I would hate to have been a part of that. And then they find the woman who's still alive and the chest burster, and then boom, like everything goes to shit. But it was also filmed really uniquely in that I think one of the cool things that Cameron did was he filmed it on, because everybody's got their little recorders, like their cameras, the soldiers do, that they watch from the APC. But he filmed all of that with like like not quite VHS, but a lower quality camera. So it had that grainy feel. And so you're seeing the action like through a TV that is, you can't tell what's going on, and there's that dissociation between it, and everybody's dying and there's screaming and there's music and the aliens are, you hear their screams, and it was just a very well put together moment.
Yeah. So that's my number one nominee. I also, I mean, hate to be cliche, but um well, I'm gonna say the last battle with the Queen, I think is pretty awesome when she's in that suit. And then I actually like the air vents. I forgot how much I like that air vent part where they're kind of get escaping through there. And again, Vasquez and Gorman are sacrificing themselves. But I thought that was a really neat. I don't know. I really like that scene.
And that was one of the ones I mentioned earlier that my brother like described a couple scenes to me after, because he got to watch it. And so I had the visualization of this stuff happening before I got to see it happen. And the air vent scene was one of them where he's like, they're going through air vents and then a grenade goes off. And it's like,
Yeah.
so I'm like 8 years old envisioning, don't know what I'm looking. I haven't seen it, but tight space and fireballs and all this stuff. And then it played out really well.
Yeah. Well, so what are your favorites?
I like, I think the first attack, as you're saying, the into the colony. I think Ripley going through the processor to find Newt, and then in the Queen's egg chamber. I think that's a really awesome scene. Just the puppet with the egg sac, and the drone sitting in the background, and she cocks her head and just starts shooting everything and burning stuff and grenades. And I enjoyed that one. But I like the kind of the world building when they're on the Sulaco, and you get to see the eating breakfast, and she don't like the cornbread, and seeing the crew together, and that when they're sitting around kind of bullshitting, and then you see the power loaders. And I like the little added, like, these are the people. And I wish there were more of that. I
Well,
wish we got to know the people a little better, but
yeah. I mean, I think
it just makes
that's
it a lived in world.
and that's the part that actually has the most resemblance to the first one, right? They're on the ship. This guy's the meathead. This guy's the comedian. This guy can do this knife trick. Yeah, that is a good part. And you're right. If they had this is a 3 hour movie, they probably could have spent more time on the characters and not just jumped right into killing them off, basically. Heath Ledger Award for scene stealing. I have two nominees. I have Bill Paxton, and not for the good reason. And I have Michael Biehn. I think he commands the scenes when he's on screen. What do you got?
Um, Scene stealing. I honestly, Al Matthews is Apone. Like, every time that guy, the Sergeant Apone, every time he's on the screen, he's saying,
Yeah.
you know, once you
He's
fetch my slippers and look into my eye, and
yeah,
every day in the Corps is like a day on the farm. Every meal, and
got that fatty
he
ass cigar.
right, and he provided a believable level of you know, like this guy has been through the shit before, and
Yep.
he's like Arlie Ermy in Full Metal Jacket. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, these people are actors, and this guy's kind of got a little more realism, as if he's been through it. Intent.
All right. He wins. I honestly I wasn't married to Bill Paxton or Michael Biehn. I was like, they're just kind of like, I don't know.
Bean's kind
Uh,
of, he has his moments, but he's like a calming presence. But it's not, I don't think he really. I think he's a lot better in the Terminator, where I think he has to act a lot more.
yeah.
Um, and that's not to knock his role in Aliens, but he looks cool, and I like the way he goes about things. But you know, you could Hudson has a much more developed personality,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Oh, totally agree. Dante's Peak. So let's start with space horror. Now, I've only got so here are my nominees. I got them in time order, but I'm sure there's more recent ones. I pretty much stopped in the late 90s. So I've got 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I know that that's not necessarily space horror, but I do think it's like space suspense thriller. So I mean, I think it kind of qualifies. That's in 1968. Alien is in 1979. This is in 86. And then I have Event Horizon in 97. And you could probably do like Jason X. But other than that, I don't know if there's a lot of space horror films. Those are my nominees.
Well, they just weren't very good.
They're
Like,
not good. Right. Those are the best ones, I
there
think.
was a whole bunch of movies after Alien that, like we had Star Wars came out, and you had a bunch of rip-off Star Wars movies. Alien came out, and there was a whole slew of B horror movie in space with that creature, and like they just,
Yeah.
none of them were ever good. Um, Galaxy of Terror was one where they land on a planet, and all the crew members are all wiped out by a creature that like feeds on their imagination, and manifests itself as their deepest fear. And that was another Roger Corman movie, who did Battle Beyond the Stars. So it's like, it's good, but it's also very cheaply made, and
Yeah.
it doesn't rise anywhere close to the level of a movie like Aliens. But not Event Horizon, like, scared me a hell of a lot more than Alien and Aliens did. I
Yeah.
want to
It
say we all
definitely,
saw that in the theater at the same time.
we definitely did, and it was
But
terrifying.
the first half of that movie is legit creepy as fuck, and the second half goes off the rails and isn't scary. But when they're going through that ship, and everybody separates, and the lights are going out, and people are
Yeah.
appearing, and it's like little kids are running around, and like, what the
It's
fuck is going on?
it's a fucked up. So I think that as far as like terror, I think that one wins. I think as far as quality and like on box office, it's got to be this. This has to be the peak.
And Paul W.S. Anderson did Alien versus Predator, so there's your little guy who did Event
Yep.
Horizon did EVP,
Yeah.
but Event Horizon was a lot better.
Paul Reiser is a pretty easy peak. I think the peak is Mad About You, right?
I have never seen a single episode of that show.
But you recognize how big that show was and how much I mean, it was on for like a
They
decade.
were getting $1 million an episode.
Yeah, so it has to be the peak. I'm curious though, when you think about his peak on the big screen, I mean, I really only, I mean, I know he's been in a lot of movies, but like really it's just for me, it's Beverly Hills Cop and this, right?
I have not seen Diner. I wanted to see Diner. I know it's a good kind of
Yeah.
drama movie from the early '80s with a good ensemble cast, but I think he's great in Beverly Hills Cop. But I I think Aliens is his. He was so effective in Aliens that at the premiere, his I think his sister was sitting next to him in the theater, and she like punched him in the arm. Was like, "You are," like she's like, he did such a good job of being an asshole
Uh,
that she lashed out against him violently
yeah.
for being part of that.
He's a fucking weasel. Lance Henriksen, we already kind of mentioned these, but he had 269 credits. This in 86, Hard Target in 93, The Quick and the
That's
Dead.
great. I was thinking about that.
Oh yeah, Hard Target's very
Hard
good.
Target is fun.
Quick of the Dead, 95,
Uh,
and then again, I have to say the show Millennium that where he won a what did he win? A Grammy for it.
Golden Globe.
Not Grammy, Golden Globe in 1999, but I've never even heard of this show before. Uh, but apparently
I remember came out. It was like a X Files with serial killers.
yeah,
It wasn't the X Files. It had kind of a supernatural element, but it was darker. And I never watched it. You know, I liked him as Charles Wayland. I think he's a good, but he definitely peaked in the. You know, it's amazing how many movies he was in. He's one of those guys you watch
so
'70s and
many
'80s
things.
movies, and
Yeah.
he just appears in the background. Like he's in Close Encounters. As he doesn't have any speaking roles. He's just there. And I saw Network a couple weeks ago at the High Point, which was like '76, and he's a reporter. He's just sitting in the just there he is in the right stuff. He's Wally Shira, and he doesn't have any speaking roles, but he's just boom there. And then,
Yeah.
but his career really, you look at his list of movies he's been in the last 20 years, and it's been not good.
No, no, it's true. Yeah.
Mostly non-recognizable, straight to DVD, straight to video stuff, or
Well, that's what's going to happen when you have
it's
270
unfortunate.
credits.
Yeah,
It's nuts.
he's fallen
So
off.
Michael Biehn has had 111 credits, and he's a Sigma Nu, by the way. That'd be more interesting if Lambert was here, obviously. But the Terminator in 84, this in 86, The Abyss in 89, Tombstone 93, and The Rock in 96 are kind of like his major things. Then he kind of does the same thing as Lance Henriksen does, which kind of tapers off into B movies and TV roles and things like that. So what do you think is his peak?
The Terminator
Or I think it's
or
Tombstone.
Tombstone. I mean, he's great in Tombstone, but he really carries as he really carries the Terminator as Kyle
Yeah, I don't think.
Reese. Like
Yeah,
he,
I don't. And I guess it's kind of hard to say because he's not really the main guy in Tombstone. He's one of the antagonists, but yeah, I mean, I guess as a main actor, you gotta say Terminator. I think he's really great in The Abyss too. He plays a really, really good bad guy in The Abyss. Um,
yeah, he always talks about how he was kind of typecast as a bad guy, and
yeah,
people didn't want to see him in hero roles. But
which is funny because he's
for
so
somebody,
great at it in this and also the Terminator, right?
yeah,
All right, Sigourney Weaver. This might be a little harder. Again, Alien was in 79. Ghostbusters is in 84. This is in 86, where once again she's nominated for Best Supporting Actress. In 88, she's nominated for Best Actress for Gorillas in the Mist. She's also nominated for Best
she was,
Supporting Actress for Working Girl in
yeah,
88. That's a big year. 89,
it's a great movie
Ghostbusters
too.
2. Aliens 3 in 92. Dave is in 9. I had to put Dave on there because I love Dave in
I
93.
like Dave.
And I also had to put Galaxy Quest on there for 99. That's obviously not her
It's
peak.
another great movie. You don't think
So I
that's her
think
peak?
no, I'm saying that's not her peak. I'm saying, but I had to put it on there because she's great in it. I think it's hard to argue that her peak isn't just the year 1988 with Gorillas in the Mist and Working Girl. I mean, she's nominated for 2 Academy Awards in different categories, right?
Yes. I mean, maybe from a dramatic point of view, but I think Aliens is like, do people talk about Gorillas in the Mist anymore? Have you ever
No,
seen that movie?
I forgot what that was until I had to look it up.
She plays like Diane Fossey, and
Yeah.
it's a good movie, and she does a good dramatic job, but it's also one of those like biopic type picks where I think it's aided in that you're playing somebody who was real and met a tragic fate, and so
Yeah.
you're respected more because you're stepping into a real person's shoes and embodying them. But I think Aliens was her peak personally. Like I'm gonna go with that.
I mean, box
But
office.
I think she killed it in Galaxy Quest. Like she gets to kind of skewer herself.
She's so good in that
Uh,
movie.
she she's certainly hot as hell in Galaxy Quest, which is
Yeah.
great because it's like almost 20 years after, 10, 15 years after Alien and Aliens.
Yeah.
And she just has some of those best points, like, you know, why would anyone do this? Why would they design it this way when the ship is just a bunch of, moving parts to crush you? And it's like calling out the insane logic
Yeah. Yeah.
of Star Trek and science fiction movies.
Yep. No, I honestly I would say that's maybe the favorite thing. My favorite thing of all these movies might be Galaxy Quest. Hate to say it over Alien Aliens, but yeah, as far as box office and just like I mean the role of Ripley is career defining, you know.
It's
No,
iconic.
yeah. Bonus, what do you think is a better James Cameron sequel? This or Terminator 2?
I've been weighing this, and it's a hard. I I mean, I got to see Terminator 2 in the theater, and I didn't get to see Aliens in the theater, but Terminator 2, I think, was probably the first R movie I saw in the theater.
I'm sure we were
And
together. I definitely saw it in the theater.
that was a great movie. I think Terminator 2 is a little better in terms of story and action sequences, but Aliens it's like a, you know, 99 to a 98.5. Like, how do you, they're distinct enough that you can't compare them, but Terminator 2 is pretty freaking awesome as sequels go.
Yeah,
And
I would
so is
agree.
Aliens.
Really the question also becomes, I was going to save it for later, but like, I'll just ask it now. Is this what is the Mount Rushmore of sequels in a series? I mean, it's got to be this, Terminator, Godfather, and then Empire Strikes Back. Like, is that it? Is that the? I mean, I think that's
I
pretty close.
I some people might say the Two Towers is.
Okay.
I think there's debate there, but I think Return of the King is. I like Fellowship personally best out of all
I do
three of them.
too. I actually, honestly, I like them in order they were released. Like my favorite is Fellowship, then Two Towers, then Return of the King is my least favorite.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people like Return of the King.
Well, I mean, won the Academy Award,
And
so I guess that doesn't really say anything. But
oh,
all right, well, I was just curious. Like that's another bonus to the bonus. But I do think like
there's got to be more.
I'm sure there are,
Beverly
but
Hills Cop 2. No, that wasn't as good as the first one. But no,
no,
I think
no.
Empire is, you know,
And I think it's
the
got. And honestly, I think Godfather 2 is better than the first one. I know I'm sacrilegious by saying that. Um,
no, I
I'm
consider
more
it acceptable
entertained to
perspective.
watch this. Again, I would watch this one way more often than the original Alien, even though I know Alien, the first one, is a better movie. And I actually like Terminator 2 better than Terminator 1 as well. I think Terminator 2 is a hell of a lot of fun.
Terminator 2 is a lot better than Terminator. I mean, Terminator is a very well-made movie for what it is. Like a guerrilla movie, like running around LA at night without permits,
Yeah.
shooting shit before the police show up.
You can
But
tell
Terminator
that
2,
movie is made in the 80s. Terminator 2,
yeah,
honestly, it could have been made last year. Like I mean it's very, very good.
yeah, it's kind of, and it's also peak Schwarzenegger too. Like
Yeah, sure.
when he was at his cultural zenith in terms of box
Yeah.
office and popularity and like for just huge movie star, biggest star in the world.
Quoth the Raven. This is not a very quotable movie. There are a couple bangers, so I'll just start and then you can add on if you'd like. I mean, get away from her, you bitch. That's obviously a pretty big one.
I and they used it. I don't know if you saw Romulus, but they used that in Romulus, and it really upset me.
Really?
Um,
I've seen that. I forgot that.
'Cause it had no context. It didn't have the same context. And we haven't really discussed Romulus at all, but Romulus was like just an amalgamation of every other Alien movie. It's like let's take all the cool stuff, and so like the android like kills an alien, and it's like get away from her, you bit, and it's like he does the quote, but there's no reason for the quote to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas in Aliens, it's like, yeah, she's the mother defending her child against this monster, and there's attitude to it, and it's great. The delivery was perfect. Apparently, she got it on the first take. So no, that's a great place to start.
All right. You got one? Go.
I guess you don't like the cornbread either.
It's good.
Frost on the ship.
Yep, yep. I've got one from well, I'm just gonna say the annoying ones and you can say the better ones. That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do? Fucking Hudson Paxton. He's
I like Burke's follow up. Let's build a fire. Can sing a couple of songs.
yeah, that's good. I liked Apone's quote, which was, "All right, sweethearts, you heard the man, and you know the drill. Assholes and elbows." Hudson,
Assholes and
come
elbows
here.
is a good one.
Come here. He goes,
Come here.
come here. About to get yelled at. Yeah. That's all I had.
I'm
That's
trying to think of a.
that's literally the end of the list, I think.
Well, the opening quote. I say we take off, nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. That's kind
And
of
then
become synonymous.
and then Hicks repeats it, which is pretty great.
And another one in reading this in doing research for this, the when they're doing their kind of questionnaire with a platoon sitting in the hangar, and Hudson sticks his hand up, and he's like, Gorman's like, "What is it, Hicks?" And he goes, "Hudson, sir." He's Hicks. He goes, "What's the question?" He goes, "Is this going to be a stand-up fight or another bug hunt?" And and then Hicks follows with, "Well, it sounds like a bug hunt." That line, that was a real military term, as I'm understanding. A bug hunt was basically a mission where you were sent on like a random small, like you had to do a bunch of small things. Like you had to go house to house looking for something. Like it wasn't an important hard mission. It was like a time wasting thing that usually didn't involve any action. And because of that movie, because of Aliens and the quote in that context, it basically adapted within the military and within science fiction movies and video games to mean literally going out and search and kill for the enemy and and so it was a real quote that then adapted to the context of the movie and has since taken off on its own
Oh,
under the new definition.
that's cool.
So the bug hunt. Yeah.
You're canceled. Is there anything that we need to get rid of from this movie? I wrote down just nothing. This isn't a movie that
I, so my I'm going to critique a little bit. One, the 57-year timeline jump bugs me.
yeah.
Um, One, I think it works in context because when you watched the movie, did you watch the special edition or the theatrical cut? Do you remember?
Theatrical.
So did it have the scene at the beginning when Ripley gets shown the picture of her daughter, and it explains like her daughter died
Oh,
because she was away for so long. Because that's an important bit of context in that
totally.
she was gone and
I've
she had
and
a daughter, and her daughter
I've
aged out.
I've seen that version before, and I remember like when we were watching it like 2 nights ago, I was like, oh, totally cut that out. Yeah,
Yeah, and that wasn't part of it. And so, in the context of having like the emotional loss of I was gone for so long that I lost my daughter, and then needing and then seeing Newt and the whole Newt kind of becoming the
yeah,
surrogate child, that makes sense.
yeah,
But a 50s like it my issue and to nerd out is like the company Weyland Yutani, which appears in all of them now, is supposed to be like this nefarious evil organization. And an Alien, it's implied that the ship is redirected to the planet to pick up an alien to find a life form and bring it back. So the company knows about the planet and enough to redirect the ship and are willing to sacrifice their crew. But for some reason, 57 years goes by and they never go back to that planet. And they end up going back to that planet. 30 years have gone, 20 years, because the guy in the office is like, we've had people on the planet for 20 years building this processor. So this company knows the aliens are there because
yeah.
they sent them there, but they've been there for 57 years and haven't sent anybody back to investigate and go back to the original ship and pick up. Like, you didn't have to have the movie, you could have just sent people back. And then it falls into the whole Romulus thing where and this is an issue with me with just the idea of canon in movies now. And it kind of plays into Rogue One with Star Wars. It's like if there's a gap in time, I feel like everybody feels like writers feel like they need to insert something into that gap of time to expand the story. So rather than getting new material and progressing things, it's like, oh, we've got a little window where let's expand upon this window of like, how did we get the plans for the Death Star? Like, do we need to know? Like in this case, it worked and it made for a good movie, but do we really need to see how they got the plans to the Death Star? And in Romulus, they find the alien floating through space, and Romulus takes place in between aliens. Like, if there's no timeline jump, then there's no room for people to write movies that, in my opinion, aren't that good and are
Mhm.
really just kind of riding on the coattails of and altering the canon and altering the timeline and making you ask more questions. Because it's like, how did all this stuff happen and nobody went back to the planet and just picked up a couple eggs and put it on a ship and left and solved all the problems? So there's that, and that's kind of nitpicking. But my other issue too is James Cameron, like, it's a Vietnam War movie in space,
Yeah,
is how he describes it, and that's a big part of what Aliens is. And I feel like kind of shits on the military and makes them seem like really incompetent, and kind of needlessly so. Like the Gorman being totally inept, and the Hudson being the braggadocio and bragging about everything, and they get it just getting destroyed. And there's just like a lot of mistakes that happen where you question, you're like, why did they send their entire squad into the processor the first time and
yeah,
have
yeah.
them all get wiped out? What? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't think it's even like making fun of the military. It's almost like, or like you like kind of forget they're trained people for the military. It's almost as if they're like the squad that's in Predator, right? They're a bunch of like hired guns that are ex-military. Now they're coming together. Like that's almost like how like the tropes that they're playing.
They end up becoming a trope, and I think you used the word that I was going to get to. And it's like, well, you got a drop ship, but there's nobody guarding the drop ship. You're just leaving the door open. Like, there are hostile
Yeah.
creatures running
Right.
around, and you're leaving your one escape,
Oh shit, there's
and
one
there's
in here
nobody
now.
in
Weird.
and there's nobody in the Sulaco. Like the giant ship is in space and it's just empty. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that you're taking steps that nobody in the military would ever take, except for a scenario where you need to have the plot happen. And I
Yeah.
think it's just kind of, it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense. And this is kind of just me having seen it so many times and coming to nitpick at finding chinks in the armor and flaws. So
Yeah,
you can ignore all that if you
that's
want.
what we're here for. That's what we're here for. Lambert's favorite character, another Spider-Man. Again, let's recast this movie. So Private Hudson was played by Bill Paxton. He was 31 at the time. So I was doing some research. I was looking for 30-year-olds basically. Um, and someone who could be very obnoxious. And I've got two nominees. I'll go first on this one. I have Glenn Powell. I always have Glenn Powell. I feel like I always recast him at some point. And then I also have Miles Teller.
Ooh, I would go with Miles Teller. I'll be honest, I have a hard time with this category
Okay. Well,
because
I
I
got
don't get
nominees
to
for all
see.
of them.
Well, then, because I know when you list them, but it's like I've seen these movies so many times that
Yeah.
I can't. It's hard to imagine somebody else in the role. Like it's just they're become iconic.
Yeah.
And but I could see Miles Teller being having fun with it and showing up in a mustache like he has as Rooster in Top Gun. And
Yeah, and I think about him in the like the Divergent series as being kind of a whiny little bitch. I think he could pull that off pretty well. That's where my head was when I was recasting.
I
Burke,
get you.
Paul Reiser was 30. He looks good, by the way, in this movie.
He's handsome. He's a
He's handsome. He's a good-looking guy. So
yeah.
my nominees are in order of my favorites. You know, Jack Loudon is my first one. You know who Jack Loudon is?
I know the name. What's he in? But
Uh,
no.
the thing that you'd know him from the most, probably if you've ever watched this show, is Slow Horses. He's also in a show called The Gold.
Jack Loudon.
He's in a lot of
I
things.
recognize him.
Okay. So I also have Alden Ehrenreich, speaking of Star Wars, and he's the guy who plays Solo.
Yeah.
And then my favorite is Jesse Plemons.
Jesse Plemons, I figured would come up at some point.
hmm
That's a good choice. I recognize him.
I think he'd be good in that only because I think that you would know from the get-go he's going to do something to double cross. Like it makes sense he's the company man.
I think Bill Burke, Paul Reiser, like plays it really well. The role, like you don't necessarily think he's bad until later on. Like
I I guess maybe
he's weaselly, but he's
yeah,
you know he doesn't appear as a villain
he is sympathetic.
would appear.
I think maybe the better way to describe it is when he does turn, you're like, fuck, I should have seen that coming. God damn it.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think Plemons could do that. So Bishop, Lance Hendrickson, he was 46 at the time. And I mean, he's fucking fit too. So I have
God, we're also old.
he's our age, which is crazy.
I
He's
know.
he's Colin my nominees are Colin Farrell, Oscar Isaac, and then my favorite is Rami Malek.
Rami Malek is an interesting one.
I was just thinking of someone who you could think of like, nah, it makes sense. He's a robot. He's a synthetic. That checks out.
Who would you pick?
Um, so I'm between Oscar Isaac and Rami Malek, honestly. I think Oscar Isaac would be better. I actually think Oscar Isaac would be much better as what's his name in Alien? Why am I blanking on
Ash.
Ash? I think he'd be an amazing Ash. I think Rami Malek. There's something about the way Henderson plays him. Is like he's a very sympathetic character. You're like you kind of like I don't know. You're like
He's
Ripley.
likable.
You're like Ripley. Stop being such an asshole to him. Like he's cool. And I think that Rami Malek has that vibe to him.
I may be synthetic, but I'm not stupid.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Hicks, Michael Biehn was 30, back to the 30s. I have four nominees. Taron Egerton, you know who that is?
I do.
Liam Hemsworth, that's the younger brother.
Too
Joseph
good looking.
Joseph Quinn. He actually might be a better Hudson, honestly. And my favorite is Sam Claflin. You know who Sam Claflin is?
No,
He is in the Hunger Games movies.
Sam, what?
Claflin, Clafin. I just think he's
Clayton.
a.
No.
I think he's
I
got
wish
a
Blockbuster still exists. He's handsome. Who was the guy you recommended for Hudson at the beginning? Who
Glenn Powell.
the
Glenn Powell. Glenn Powell could probably do it too. Yeah,
I would see Glenn Powell because they're trying to push him as like the A-lister,
A-list
you
leading
know,
man. Okay,
lead star. I could see him filling. They've got similar vibe, a
yeah,
well-defined chin and a chill demeanor.
okay, that's good. I'll take that. Glenn Powell. Finally, Ripley. So Sigourney Weaver was 36. So I've got a handful of nominees, but I'm just gonna name my top three. And so when I was trying to recast her, I was obviously thinking about actress that's in like in their 30s somewhere, um, but is believable to be someone who could just I don't know become a like seemingly becomes a badass. Like going from I've been in hypersleep for 57 years to now I'm wearing a fucking tank top and I'm just straight fucking like you know fire firing I mean killing all these aliens and battling. Well, I don't know. You have like you see her become this fucking amazingly strong woman. So Margot Robbie is my first nominee. Emma Stone.
Interesting.
Emma Stone. I think she could do that for sure. And my favorite is actually Daisy Ridley from our Star Wars sequels.
That'd be interesting. And the Ripley one is interesting because she's basically even reappeared like all the more recent Alien movies, the Prometheus and Covenant and Romulus, they've all basically had like a Ripley clone in
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
Like the brunette strong female lead who takes control and runs the show. And so it's like as far as people go, it's like she constantly is recast as it is. And it's the trope that won't die now.
yeah. All right, Daisy Ridley
Who
wins.
was yeah.
Next
I was gonna say
category.
Amelia Clark.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay. Oh God,
Amelia Clark. But then you get her like she was
man,
also in one of the Terminator movies and
she is. Yeah.
but
I
she's
actually like
she's cute
Emilia Clarke.
and
I like her just as much as Daisy Ridley. I think they'd be both be really good. Okay, so tomorrow's another day is the category we should talk about like what happens next. We already know what happens next because Alien 3 like literally picks up right where this movie left off. What I'm curious though, and to throw you a little curveball, what would you have done, if anything, differently if you were writing the third part of this trilogy? That's a tough
Ugh.
question to throw at you, but
um
and again,
you know
having said, I'm asking you this question under the premise that I think we both expressed that we enjoy Alien 3. I like Alien 3 a lot.
I do. I would have gone with personally some of the earlier, not the William Gibson script idea, but the movie was originally designed where it's on a prison planet as it takes place, but it was supposed to take place on a it's a fascinating concept, a wooden planetoid. So it's like a planet made of wood, and it's occupied by monks.
Okay.
And it was a much more divergent science fiction, like it was a little more hardcore sci-fi. And when you watch the making of Alien 3, they kind of go through the production skills, and it was like it would have been like a giant mortuary or monastery made of wood on this small artificial planetoid with an atmosphere that was constructed of trees. And it's a very fascinating concept. And you get your no guns aspect, and like they're kind of prisoners, but they're not really prisoners. And I think you could have had Hicks and Newt live, which that most of the complaints I see about that movie are the fact that both of them died,
Yeah.
which never bothered me. That was never I was never hung up on the fact that they didn't appear because it was it became Ripley's story, and I always felt it was Ripley's story. And it wasn't a sequel in the sense that like you have to have the same people involved. because then you're kind of going through the same motions and the same tropes, and killing them off just kind of like leaves a blank slate. But
Yeah, no, I think that's my only complaint, honestly. Like I get why you kill them off because yeah, now it's like we're just telling this new story about this prison basically, but I would have liked to see them having I don't know, I guess I'm kind of torn because they survived this crazy traumatic event to
whole
then just be
ordeal.
killed off by a new alien on this prison planet. So I kind of get why it's like let's just Fincher's part. It's like let's just kill them off now and not make them have to be killed
That
off by
that
another
wasn't
alien.
that was Geiler and Hill. That was the producers were like adamant about they wanted to get rid of Newt.
Hmm.
They did not like the mother. They wanted to eliminate the mother story plot,
Hmm.
um, the storyline, because I think it took it in a much more friendly direction. And they're like these movies. The first one is dark and it's fairly depressing. She lives at the end, but to what fate? She's floating through space by herself. Everybody dies,
Yeah.
and then Aliens is a happy ending, and they're like, maybe this universe shouldn't have happy endings. Maybe this universe should be darker.
I mean, I'm honestly, I would have rather Ripley die and then Newt is the one who survives. I don't know. That's just me though.
That would have been interesting. But I will say, in college, I took a screenwriting class, and my final project was I wrote Alien 5. I wrote a full length screenplay
Yeah, yeah.
taking place after Alien Resurrection. So I'm not going to give you the details
Yeah, don't
because
give
I
away
don't
for
want to. I
free.
don't want to. I don't want to bore you. But there were some cool concepts in it. I reread it the other day. My dialogue wasn't very good; needs to be fleshed out. But it was like, you know, robot android cults and militaries and rival factions of aliens fighting each other, and
Yeah,
it was fun.
that's
So,
not fun.
but I think the problem with Alien 3 is that are we remaking Alien 3 now with modern technology, or are we remaking Alien 3 in 1990 when CGI is at its infancy and there's no way to the expectation is things are going to get bigger and there's going to be more and there's no way to do that from a technical standpoint, because I think that's also a problem that they had with the movie is that people wanted Aliens 2, and the only way to get Aliens 2 is to turn it up and to increase the number of aliens and to have multiple queens and more power loaders, and it just becomes this, like, how are you going to make this? How are you going to visualize and create more, even more, without James Cameron being on it and without having Fincher was a new director. Like, that was his first movie.
Yeah.
And so I think by toning it down and making it more like Alien and simplistic, they were doing themselves favors, and that, like, the technology wasn't there. But if you were to make it today, like, you could do anything. You could have them land on Earth and actually have a bunch of aliens running around on Earth. Like, the world is your oyster. But what might have been?
I skipped a category which was to stream or not to stream. Um, so do you think this would be better as a TV show? And I think we can agree that the answer is no, but I'm curious, have you watched Alien Earth?
Did watch Alien Earth.
What'd you think about it?
I thought there were some interesting concepts that I wish were explored more, but the aliens themselves were more of an afterthought. Like the Oculus, the eyeball alien, the other aliens were interesting, but I feel like it would have been just a better show if it weren't tied into the alien universe. And at the same time, like, continuity issues, like, okay, now the aliens have been on Earth and the company has the eggs. Well, why do the events of Alien have to happen? So I
Right.
thought it was good, but the children robots didn't do it for me,
Yeah.
and her being able to just magically be able to communicate with them through whistling didn't do it for me. So I feel like I put in a lot of time watching that, and I was like, this has to get they have to do something better, and it just never really never really struck me as like that that good.
Well, there's going to be another season, so I guess you have time to
Oh, it's coming out in like 2 or 3 years though. It's like 28.
Yeah, I think Noah Hawley's working on it right now, but I like him. I think he does really good stuff. I love Fargo, so I mean it may take a couple seasons. I haven't actually watched it yet. I'm kind of like again, I'm a big pussy about this stuff, so I haven't, you know.
Oh, it's not scary, but Timothy Olyphant is
Yeah,
in it,
I heard he's
if I'm not
great.
mistaken. And he's the best part. And it's like, in my opinion, when you look at all these movies, or at least the more recent ones, like Prometheus and Covenant and Romulus, like the robots have become the best part of the movies, and that is both good and bad because they're interesting characters, but it also means like you're lacking in other areas too.
Yeah,
But like Michael Fassbender in Prometheus and Covenant is
he's great.
absolutely the best part of those movies, and
I don't.
far more fascinating than
Yeah,
everything else.
I mean, I think that they have a history of like the robots or whatever you call them, like being pretty good. I mean, Hendrickson in this one. You've got Bilbo Baggins
Ian
in the first
Holm,
one. Ian Holm.
Bilbo Baggins.
um, and I mean, I think that's I mean that is consistent though. Like they are usually very interesting characters and good actors. So nerd facts. So what other facts can we share that we haven't already talked about? I'll start. So this is arguably the first movie to start off the special edition director's cut craze for home videos. There were other movies that had versions where they were released into theaters with additional footage, for example, Close Encounters. Cameron re-edited this and was released on March 5th, 1989 on CBS with cut footage.
That's the one I saw.
And it was so well received that it actually became the special edition Laserdisc release in 1991. The director's cut of Blade Runner followed suit, which was obviously very popular. And then a director's cut of the original Alien was released in '03 for its 24th anniversary. What a
Yeah.
weird number. What a
I had to
weird number.
reread that. I was like, why 24?
Yeah, it's very weird. And then Alien 3 was also re-released for a box set in '03 that fixed some editing issues. So, yeah, that definitely has become like a major thing now.
Oh, it's like every movie coming out, all comedies, and it's like, oh, you got the director's cut and unrated edition and
And
X, Y, and Z. And
I won't watch Lord of the Rings unless it's the extended version.
I haven't seen the extended one since I saw it in the theater. Yeah,
Oh.
it's
Well,
always the
you
director's cut.
thought 3 hours was long. Add 45 minutes. That's how long every one of those movies are.
They're great though. They don't
They're
feel
so
like
good.
that.
So good. No, they do not at all. Not at all. No.
Uh, then one of the special editions, from my understanding, it was is not in the original one, but for the special edition, if you're, and I remember finding this out as a kid by watching it through the credits and hearing this, but if you watch the credits of Aliens at the very end when they're doing like the Motion Picture Association of America symbol and whatnot, the music dies down. You can hear some winds in the background, and then you hear a face hugger scuttling, the
Hmm.
sound of something, which is like kind of, this was 89, so they're already hinting that there's going to be a sequel
Yeah.
to some degree. And I always thought that was I remember hearing that as a kid and be like, oh my God, like I never knew that was there and obsessing over it.
Aliens featured effects work by some pretty talented people. For example, Stan Winston, who we already talked about earlier, but he also designed both the Terminator exoskeleton and the Predator, and was brought in to redesign the look of the alien and to basically design the Queen as well, based on sketches by Cameron. By the way, the
Here's a
Queen.
little fun.
I
Go ahead.
was gonna say, by the way, the Queen needed 16 people to operate, ended up being one of the most largest and most complex puppets ever put on film.
So little aside, when they were doing Predator, if you remember that, like Jean-Claude Van Damme was originally cast as the Predator,
Yeah.
and they had a suit and it was not working well, and they ended up firing him and redesigning it. As Stan Winston was sketching, he was on a plane and he was sitting next to James Cameron on a plane when he was working on the design for the Predator. And James Cameron is the one that suggested that the Predator have mandibles which Stan incorporated into the design. So the famous Predator mouth that opens up wide
Really?
with the the four mandible parts, that was an influence from James Cameron on a I don't know, I think they were flying to Hawaii or something, but he's like, you should add mandibles. That would be awesome. And Stan Winston's like, okay. And the rest is history.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, the shit that they came up with back in the day and that we take for granted is like insane. The creativity. Production designer Ron Cobb, who also designed productions for Star Wars, Alien, and Conan the Barbarian, designed the Hadley's Hope compound and the APC, which was converted from a airplane tug. Also, Sid Mead, who worked with Star Wars, Blade Runner, and Tron, designed the Sulaco. H.R. Giger lamented
Giger,
not, Giger lamented not being asked to participate, but complimented the Queen design nonetheless.
do you know who H.R. Giger is?
I have no idea. You should have read that one.
He's I'm sorry. H.R. Giger was a Swiss artist who designed the original Alien from the first
Okay.
one.
Okay.
And he
Oh,
also did the eggs and the ship, and he's a very odd, nightmarish. He does kind of airbrush paintings, and Ridley Scott was looking through one of his books and saw one of his paintings. I can't remember the title of it right now, but when you look at it, and it's literally an alien creature with a big elongated, like he liked to use a lot of phallic imagery. He threw penises and vaginas, and like he's very sexualized,
hmm.
but kind of gruesome. Like he's a very weird artist. He always claimed that he would have nightmares, and then he'd paint his nightmares. And so a big part of Alien being kind of as people would say sexualized as it is because of the work of Giger. And then he didn't do Aliens, but he came back to design the dog Alien in Alien 3 as
Oh,
well.
okay.
And he did if you remember Species, that movie, he designed Syl, the alien from that. And so he had a very distinct style that he's one of my favorite artists. He's got
Yeah.
some cool
A lot
stuff.
of, lot of fucking in that movie, Species.
Yeah.
The movie wasn't shot in sequence. Cameron waited till the end of the shoot to film the scenes with the platoon together in order to allow a realistic sense of camaraderie that was developed. I wanted to read this one because of this fact. He also had everyone read Starship Troopers to get them in the mindset of what being in a space or being a space marine would entail. I love Starship Troopers.
Yeah. And then you see the movie and it's kind of like, oh, you're taking off of Aliens. It's like, no, Aliens kind of borrowed the idea, but
Right.
yeah, it worked out. And then going back, as I was talking about Al Matthews, having being really realistic in his portrayal of a sergeant, he was actually in the U.S. Marines and fought in Vietnam, and was awarded 13 combat decorations, including two Purple Hearts. And he, according to his biography, was the first Black Marine in the First Marine Division in Vietnam to be meritoriously promoted to the rank of sergeant. So he really was in the shit. And I mean, getting two Purple Hearts is pretty significant.
Right.
And so he brought that, I think, a nice sense of realism to the role. And when he's talking to people, like you get the impression that he's done that before.
Yeah, definitely. The alien screams are baboon shrieks, altered in post. Creepy.
Fun one. Are we alternating these?
Oh yeah, yeah. Alternate.
Okay. One of the alien eggs is exhibited in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. And if you've ever been to Seattle and go visit the Space Needle, there is a museum of pop culture in the first floor that features, I think, another egg and then one of the alien costumes. And then on a side note, when I was a kid, I went to Planet Hollywood, and I distinctly remember, and I actually had a disposable camera, and they had Hicks's armor on display at I want to say it was like the Disney World Planet Hollywood in Orlando.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, man, it's a really cool armor design. So I took a picture of it as a child and collected that. So that was on display too.
That's very cool. In both the standard and special edition versions, the 15-minute countdown at the end of the film is indeed 15 minutes. And this is something that drives me fucking crazy with movies, where they're like 5 minutes till the timer, and then there's literally 20 minutes of screen time. And you're like, just make the timer 20 minutes. There's no reason for it to be a shorter number. Thank you, aliens, for
Yeah,
actually being true.
just edit that in post. It's not like you can't
Doesn't make
change
any
what
sense.
the word has to say.
Right, exactly.
Okay. I mentioned before that Michael Biehn did not appear in Alien 3. Much to his disappointment, his character was killed off in the beginning as he was impaled by a support column. What a way to go. But producers approached him about using his likeness for the movie. And as pissed as he was, he demanded money. And he actually got paid more than three times for Alien 3 than he did for Aliens to be in the entire movie of Aliens. And the only shot of him in Alien 3, if you remember, is at the beginning when they're doing like the little crew member illustrations, and it's a little green digitized image of his face that appears for a few seconds. And he got again three times more money than he did for Aliens just to have his face used in that one scene. So he definitely made him pay for killing him off.
Yeah, good for him. The set for the atmospheric processing plant was a decommissioned power plant in the UK. It will later be used as the Axis Chemicals plant in Burton's Batman. That's awesome.
That is a fun one. I like that. It's a great set. It
Yeah, it really is.
works very well. And this is one I like and added myself. So Reebok produced special shoes for Aliens. You don't get to see them. You do see them at one scene when Ripley is loading into the power loader for the first time. After she's like, "What can I do around here?" And she drops her feet in. Those were specially designed shoes by Reebok. And then Bishop wears a similar version, but they're a low top version. So Ripley's are come up to like the mid calf, and Bishops are mid. They were released briefly in 1986, and then they were released again in 2016 for the 30th anniversary, referred to as Alien Stompers, and they quickly sold out. Um, Several editions have since been released in conjunction with the series. And what I think is fascinating is it's arguably the first major branded sneaker tie-in with a movie. And as popular as shoe culture has become in recent years, like that was kind of ahead of the time. 1986, you can think about like when Back to the Future 2 came out and Michael J. Fox had those
Pumps.
self-lacing Nikes, the Nike Air Mags with the
Yeah, yeah.
glowing, like those were, people saw those and are like, holy shit, that's awesome. And then Michael Jordan had a specially designed Air Jordan, the Jordan 11s in Space Jam, that were not released to the public for a couple of years, but Aliens kind of did it first. And I will admit, I tried to buy I saw them advertised, and I tried to buy a pair in 2016. It was like impossible to get them. They were sold out in like minutes. But I was going on my trip. I did my around the world trip, and my one of my stops was in Japan, and I was in Tokyo, and I was in Harajuku, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go see if they have these for sale at the Adidas store in Harajuku because I Japanese feet are smaller on average than American feet, and so I went to the Adidas store, and they had them there in my size actually, which I never would have gotten trying to get them in the US because they sold out initially. So I have a pair of the Bishop ones, um, which I mailed back home, and I regret not buying the Ripley ones because even at any size, because they sell for like $1,200 online now. Like
Yeah, I
they're
was gonna ask you
they're
how
hard
much
to
were
find.
they?
I think they were like 200 or something when I bought them, maybe 150. They weren't
Yeah.
exorbitant,
Yep.
but the Ripley ones have since become collector's items, and
I
they
bet.
go for over a thousand
Yeah.
dollars. So
Crazy.
opportunity lost.
In the vein of adult movies not meant for kids, having cartoons made for them aimed at kids, such as Rambo, RoboCop, Police Academy, Kenner planned an animated series called Operation Aliens in 1992. It never was produced, and apparently there were still stills, like production stills, that are known to exist. But Kenner did release a toy line based on the idea that had all of the Marines in 90s clothes. It also featured a collection of nicely sculpted aliens based on the premise that eventually became Alien 3. The most successful toy from the Alien franchise remains the 18-inch Kenner Big Chap alien figure from 1979. Do you own that?
Yes, I do. With the box. And
Um,
I picked up the poster separately on eBay for like $150. So I've got those are hard to find. To me, not hard to find. You can get them, but they've gone up quite a bit. I got that in like 1992. I think when I bought at the same show where I got the special edition, and it was like 100, maybe $200 or something. My dad got it for me, and it's one of my favorite collectibles.
yeah,
And it's an awesome toy. It's got a little button on the back of its head, and the mouth pops out, and it's got a removable dome with a skull underneath that glows in the dark. And it was the best part is the box, because it's like 8-year-old playing with this alien toy with his just this ecstatic expression on his face. Like, that movie was not meant for kids. Kids did not see it. And it didn't sell very well either. That was the only reason it's hard to find, is that it was out for a couple of weeks and was a not a successful toy, and so it was pulled from the shelves after kind of parents complained about the fact that it's a horribly violent movie, and kids should not be associating themselves with it.
that's fair.
But I'm gonna go to the one you skipped, because I think this is cool. Aliens continues in the tradition of naming ships after Joseph Conrad novels, and Joseph Conrad was the author who wrote Heart of Darkness, which later became Apocalypse Now. So the ship in Alien is the Nostromo, which is a book by Conrad called Nostromo, and he's the main character. The book takes place in a fictional town in South America called Sulaco, which becomes the name of the ship in Aliens. And then the escape craft from Alien, which appears in Aliens that Ripley is found in, is called the Narcissus, which is another title of a Joseph Conrad novel. And it's a fun little literary tie-in. And Nostromo is kind of about capitalism run amok in a small town, and silver mining and a family business. And people have kind of brought to light the parallels between the evil corporation in Alien and Aliens and Alien 3, the Weyland-Yutani, and the kind of the evils of capitalism as presented in the story Nostromo.
I skipped
So,
that so you would read it, by the way. Just to
did
be.
you? I
I did.
thought I thought you were turned off by
No, no. This isn't
lit,
my first.
lit.
This is my first rodeo. Lastly, the hugely popular PC game StarCraft was directly influenced by aliens, with the alien Zerg and human Terrans borrowing their designs from the movie, and they even included direct quotes.
Yeah, and the pipe 5x5, and that is one of the quotes you can add to the best quote list. Like, I think people use that one quite a lot. In the pipe 5x5, when it's a. But did you ever play StarCraft?
Yeah, I have. Yeah,
It's an awesome game.
yeah, it's
But yeah,
pretty
and when you see the Zergs, it's like, okay, yeah, this makes. And that kind of ties into the story I had for Alien 5, where Ripley actually starts to turn into an alien based on the alien DNA, which ties into the head of the Zerg base is like a, a female Zerg, kind of a queen human. So it would be an interesting. That was one of my ideas. Ripley turning into an alien.
Yeah, kind of happens. I guess she has a baby who turns into an alien, I guess. Sort of.
Yeah.
Alien human hybrid. Inner nerd thoughts. Did we learn anything? First of all, that truck looks like a Cybertruck. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. I don't know.
Which truck?
The truck that Ripley
The
drives into the
the
wall,
APC,
that thing, that's a
Ar-
fucking cyber. That's like
armor personnel carrier.
the first version of a Cybertruck. The Elon Musk watched Aliens too many times.
I it's the Cybertruck combined with like a Hummer. And
Yeah,
honestly, that
yeah,
I would prefer to see that on the road than the Cybertruck. Like that,
me
the
too.
APC driving around, lift the wheels a little bit, give it some clearance, and boom, that's pretty freaking awesome.
I totally agree. Alien or Predator? Which movie franchise do you enjoy better?
Oh, I mean, I Predator 1 is great, but the rest of them are meh. I mean, 2 has its moments, but like I said at the beginning, I've been kind of obsessed with the Alien movies, and I
Yeah.
wrote term papers on them in college, and collected the comics, and have all the movies and the shoes. Like, if you haven't figured out by listening to me ramble on for the last hour and a half, like I have invested a great deal of my life into those movies, and you know I enjoy them. So I'm definitely going to go with the Aliens.
Last question. Is this the best entry of the Alien series, in your opinion?
I mean, I think there's a tie between Alien and Aliens, but kind of going over the final thought, the cultural impact of Aliens is, I think, far greater than Alien. I think Alien is a great movie, and it's very visually done well, and it's scary, and it does what it needs to do. But Aliens really kind of redefined a lot of stuff. Like, it invented the gave us the Space Marines. There was novels, the Dark Horse comics. The Alien Skull and Predator 2 was great. There were arcade games, Aliens arcade game, Alien versus Predator, PC games, toys, magazines. Like, Aliens is much more of a cultural phenomenon that has left a lasting impression than I think Alien has. Um,
Mhm.
and again, that's not a negative against Alien, but like the visual nature of Aliens and kind of the things that it brought up have just permeated so much of the culture. Like, there's Batman versus Aliens, and Superman versus like, it may not be Superman, but that those comics have gone on for years, and the novels, and just the continuing to like those movies. I think the reason why is because Aliens, all the movies are basically trying to be Aliens. Alien and Alien 3 are similar, but guys with guns and multiple aliens and the Queen, and just the visual nature of it all, I think was
Yeah,
makes it the best entry in the series.
I think the concept of xenomorph, and the idea of everything that alien represents from the movie Alien is incredible, but Aliens takes it to another level where it's like a universe and you know, the possibilities of spin-offs and talk about merchandising and everything that else it did,
Yeah,
like from a business perspective, is pretty incredible.
and I don't know if you've seen, there's tons of like little figures of all the characters you can get, and McFarlane Toys made a
Yeah.
series of toys, and like, I can't get on Facebook without being inundated with like, oh hey, here's a new, you know 8-inch articulated Hudson figure with you know movie accurate armor, and here's a Vexquez figure, and it's like, it's still there, people are still making product for that movie 40 years later because it's so visually distinctive, and so popular.
Yeah. All right, Nerd Outreach, wrapping this episode up. Thank yous. We start with. I'm just gonna thank you, John. Thanks for talking aliens with me. It's been fun.
I hope I didn't ramble on. I tend to prattle.
No, you did. No, this is great. This was an awesome conversation. Um, as always, we love our listeners, so rate, share. We're available on all the social media platforms, YouTube for our nerd takes. Our next episode preview, we're going to be doing a film that I think is maybe the first film I remember watching on VHS. Speaking of VHSs that were recorded, Big Trouble in Little China. And we're going to be doing that with Neighbor Dave and John Ryan. Big Trouble in Little China. Do you like that movie, John?
Oh my God. Of course. Jack Burton. I
Who-
never drive faster than I can see. That's it's one
You
of
know,
my favorite
what
lines.
Jack Burton always says, "What the hell?"
You're not brought upon this earth to get it. No,
Um,
that's a great movie.
well, looking forward to talking about that. John, thank you. A lot of fun.
I appreciate you having me, humoring me, really. I mean,
Yeah,
you're let me do my thing.
this is great. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Do you use the video for the podcast or just the audio?
No, just the audio.
All right. So it doesn't make sense for me to go get my action figures out.
Well, I mean, I can always take some screenshots.
I know.
Or what up, dude?
What's happening? Is Lambert coming?
Yeah, he's always late. It's a power move.